Some people have asked me to mention a little bit more about the prophecies. To properly give an Indian prophecy it takes a little time, and there just isn't that much. There just isn't that much time. But I'll give a rough account of the last prophecy that was given to us about 1,000 years ago. It pertains to this time that we're going through now and 1,000 years into the future. You'll have to excuse me. I have there's quite a lot of humidity here, and it's slightly affecting me here. I'm used to Tucson weather. At the Bay of Quinte in Ontario is a small Indian reservation. It's called Deseronto, or TěěΗH. That's the Mohawk name for it. And this is the last place that the Son of the Creator was with our people when he gave us the laws, after he finished giving us the laws of the Great Peace. And he told us that he was going to go away for a while, and that he had a long trip ahead of him, and that as a matter of fact, he was going to go across the waters and into the sky. And they asked him, some of the people that were there asked him how was he going to travel. And he told them that 3 times before he left that they would question him, almost like maybe it can't happen or something like to that effect. And they said, oh no, we would never question you. But there was a little island just off the coast of the Bay of Quinte, and some of the Mohawk people refer to it as the island of wailing women. And it was given that name after he left, the peace messenger left, because the women were so sorry to see him leave that they could hear them crying like. And he told them that he would travel by a boat. And they said, a birch bark canoe or a canoe? He said, I'm going to make a boat out of stone. And right away one of them said, well, how will it float? He says, there's the first question. And he went, and they said he pulled this stone, giant stone, and he began to make motions, and he carved a stone boat. They said, where will you go from there? And he says, well, I'll go and, go out a ways, and then I'll go into the sky, and I'll return one day when certain things happen. But he says, now I've given you the laws to make the great peace possible. I've given you everything here. You need nothing more from me for this time. And they said, we want you to stay. We want you to be with us. We want you to be our chief. He said, no, I can't do that at this time. I have many other things that I have to do. And he said, when I come back, maybe that could be possible. And then he told them a prophecy. He said, there will be a time coming when a great white serpent will come upon this land. When he first comes, he'll be weak, he'll be feeble, he'll be hungry. He is still a creation of the Great Spirit, and you must receive him as such and nourish him into health. But he'll bring things with him which you cannot accept. 3 things. One will be a cross, one will be a black book, and one will be a bottle of fire water. Well, the Indian people didn't know what fire water was. They never heard of it. And that's the closest he could describe it. He said, of these 3 things, if you accept anything, you'll go against the great law of peace. You can't do that, because this great law of peace is your special instruction. And he said, and if you do accept it, it'll bring your people down. And as you come down, so will the tree of the great peace. Many people within that white serpent will chop away at the roots. they'll try to destroy this tree of the great peace. It is up to you to protect it. You must do everything within your power to see that it is preserved and protected, so that when you need it, it'll be there, and it will truly be a great tree of peace. He said this white serpent will come over the land, and then after a while, the Indian people, or native people, Ɲ'뢰ʰუნŊ or Â'իկ̈ｗެհޭ, will begin to nourish this serpent, and he'll grow strong, and he'll get very powerful. But he'll turn to get greedy, and he will want everything that he sees, and you must help him as much as you can, but don't embrace those three things. And so he went on, and he said after a while, he'll eat everything that's around him. There'll be no game left for you people. He'll even eat the land and the trees and the rivers and the mountains. And soon you'll be hurting real bad. Again, I must remind you not to embrace those things. He goes on to tell that one day he'll become so powerful that anything he wants, he'll be able to get. And when that happens, you have already embraced some of these three things. Then you people will become weak. You'll be like babies. You'll hardly be able to stand on your 2 feet. Your mind will become different. Your voice will become different. Your language will change. You'll be in the belly of this serpent, and he'll eat your grandmothers and your grandfathers and your children, and soon you'll not recognize hardly any more of your real people. He said, and the time looks very, very dark ahead of you. And suddenly, after a long time, he'll be looking at your throat. And one day, he'll reach his hand around the throat of your real people. He'll be choking the life's breath out of you, when suddenly from the north, a great red serpent will come and circle him, and will flex his muscles. And this red serpent will be very powerful and very vicious. And the white serpent will immediately get afraid, and he'll drop you to the ground like a helpless child. You'll be so weak at this point. You'll have no leadership. You'll have nothing. And as the two serpents begin to circle each other, the red serpent will reach around the back of the white serpent and pull from him a hair. And some people say it's a feather, some people say it's a hair, but I don't think that this matters. And a giant wind from the north will carry that hair south into the waiting hands or the waiting arms of another serpent, a black serpent, who is fresh from a great swim south, that he just come from the south, and he's landed on the shore. And he has been victorious in a great battle where he came from. And he has heard of things that he knows is happening, but he wants to be reassured. He knows that he must get into a great fight. When this happens, he reaches in the air, and he grabs from this hair, closes his hand very tightly. And after a short while, he opens it slowly, and that hair turns into a woman, a white woman, who tells him things that he knows to be true, but that he wants to hear them again. And when she tells it to him, he becomes infuriated, very angry. But with great love and great respect, he takes this white woman and gently places her on a great rock, and with all the respect, and he makes a beeline north to where the fighting has taken place. And in the meantime, as the black serpent is coming, he said that our people, the real people, will begin to rally a little strength. At first it'll start with the younger people. And then a choice seer will come among you, one that will be in his teens at that time. And he'll be given such great spiritual strength and power that he will be able to reach the ears and the eyes and the minds of many, many people, thousands at one time. And then he will have the power to unite them and to bring them together. Because at that point, he's looking around for some way to save not only himself, but the rest of his people who are just nothing but almost babies at that point. It said as he looks around him, he sees his aunt laying in a grave. Half of her face is sticking out of the grave. He sees some of the flesh has gone, and the bone is sticking out, some flesh still alive. But he notices her hand move, and he noticed that her heart is still beating. He sees his mother's, grandma, grandpa laying in this grave, very weak, some near death and some dead. And he knows that somewhere, way in his past, there were ancient, very sacred songs that he could have sang if they'd have passed this information onto him. He could have sang to restore the flesh, to bring the life back to his people. But the old people never gave it to him. There they were laying there. Nothing had been revealed to him. So he begins to work very, very fast, going around group to group. They said, we must leave this place. We can't be involved in this big war that's coming. We must gather our people. He says, at that time, you'll crawl. You wouldn't walk because you'll be too weak. You'll crawl south to the land of the hilly country and gather beneath the elms. And then he said, there you will renew your covenant with the Great Spirit. There you will renew your sacred instructions. There you will get back many of the things that you have lost. And he said, and as this thing takes place, you turn your back on the war. Never pick up any gun or anything, or any means, bow and arrow, anything to fight anybody. But you renew the covenant with the Great Spirit. And through a lot of pain, you'll get back these ceremonies, these ancient songs that can restore the flesh. Through a lot of pain and suffering, you'll get back what your grandma and your grandpa had failed to tell you. So hard will you be working, and so fast, that you'll forget to cut your hair, and your hair will grow longer. Your voice will change, and you'll become strong, and you'll become leader. And as you're gathered in the hilly country, you follow two deer. They're both white. One has 3 rows, 3 lines, black lines, and one has three lines of dots. These will carry you into the hilly country. And then you'll stand up there and you'll watch the great battle take place. Said the battle will open real slowly at first. There'll be a lot of pushing, a lot of shoving, a lot of words. And suddenly it will become so violent that the mountains will split and the rivers will boil and the fish will turn up on their bellies. There'll be poisonous insects coming to life. There'll be bees, very poisonous to sting. It can kill anything. They'll be coming in from the south. And strange bugs and beetles will crawl out of the ground. And in such pain because of things that's happening, they'll attack anything that moves. And those who are not protected by the spiritual power of the Great Spirit will have to suffer and will probably die. Not all of your people will go with you, he said, when this takes place. And during the course of the time when the 2 serpents are locked in battle, he said that you will hear the wailing of your people for miles and miles. Some will be crawling because they'll have no legs. Some will be walking very painfully or walking on one leg, trying to get to the hilly country too late. Many will not make it. And he said, you must be very, very careful because you could very easily be one of these people. If you clear your mind, you clear your heart, get back to the sacred instructions that I gave you, only then can you save yourself. Only then can you be there when I return. But he describes the battle, which goes a long time, and I can't go into this. And it tells about a terrific heat. It tells about this, what we believe is the radiation from exploding nuclear stockpiles and so forth, will boil the waters, will contaminate and pollute the rivers so that the fish will turn on their bellies. He also said that when this happens, there'll be no grass, there'll be no leaves, there'll be nothing in the trees, there'll be no food, no fruit, and people will be hungry and suffering from a poison in the air. And he said only you in this hilly country will be able to protect yourself by the powers that I've given you. These are very secretive powers. These are powers which can generate the wind into mighty storms. And with these powers, and we can clear the air of what we now think will be the radiation that's coming. It'll be so thick, the stench of death and the smoke will be so terrible that it'll sicken these serpents. And he goes on to tell that this black serpent suddenly makes a rush at almost the last minute, and he fights the two serpents, the white and the red, with such speed and ferocity. He defeats the two serpents. He stands on the chest of the white serpent like he's the conqueror and looks around for somebody else to conquer. The peace messenger warned us. He said he'll look south to the land of the hilly country where you people are. He says, and you'll stand there like this, no weapons in your hand. And he'll suddenly realize that you're not the ones that he should fight. So he'll look to the west. He sees a lot of destruction, a lot of desolation. He looks to the north, same thing. He looks to the east. When he faces east, a light will be coming across the water from the east to the west, will be many times brighter than the light of the sun. He said, I will be that light. I will return to you people at that time. Now what has been explained to us as they interpret this prophecy from time to time is that he will be coming over the water. And when these serpents see him, the red serpent becomes so terrified, he leaves a bloody, shaky trail. He crawls northward, never to be seen again by our people. The black serpent will look around, and he'll see the same thing that the other serpent sees. But a great, great light will go in the south, and he'll see a great light far south. And what we believe is a great, great leader will have emerged in Africa at this time. And he'll want to leave the land, not because anybody's going to force him, because he'll never accept that. But he'll go back to a great leader, and he'll go back in honor and everything. The white serpent will see that light coming closer, and he'll decide he's going to meet the light. He goes eastward, crawling, wounded, toward that light. When he reaches the shore, his right arm will fight his left. His body will be ripped in two. And they say a portion of the right arm and the body will dip into the sea and swim eastward. And after a while, this white serpent portion will disappear under the water. And our native people will be watching it. Very, very quiet. And all eyes will be upon that light that's coming. And they'll think that that white serpent that portion is dead. But after a while they see it come back up to the top and still swimming eastward. No more is mentioned about that portion of that light. But the portion that remains will fight against himself. That's his left side. And will split up and a small portion of that will crawl south to the land of the hilly country and gather with our people. He said at this point, they'll be weak, like a child to a father. And they'll never, ever emerge in any position of leadership anywhere again in this world. That they will become like children to father. And only will you notice them when you feel the tug on your pant leg. And you look down, you see the portion of that white serpent. And you must accept him. And then it goes on to say that he gets closer. And when he reaches the shoreline of the ocean, which would be the Atlantic Ocean here, that he will turn into a man, a giant, and he will be our peace messenger. And so quiet will everything become that the sky had been kind of blackened by the smoke of war and death and one thing another. And then the forces that we call upon to bring the high wind will take all these stench of death, smoke, all these black things and take them high into the sky to remove them forever. And it'll become so silent that for the first time we'll begin to hear the grass pushing through the ground. That's how quiet it'll be. All the animals that are with us, that have followed the deer, will listen and watch. So quiet you can hear the grass growing. And when he steps on the land, this will take place. And then he'll return to us. And very slowly, the male and female deer will walk out onto the land and begin to eat the grass that's grown. Which means that the poison and the radiation that had been caused will be all finished. And life will become beautiful again. Those that survive will have a very beautiful time of it. But this is just a rough, very quick portion of a prophecy that could very literally put the goosebumps right up your spine when it's told. And it takes 4 days. I don't know if my brother here has heard it before, but it takes 4 days to properly tell it. And they stick a stick in the ground when they start, and the sun is rising and the shadow cast way over here. And as the sun gets higher and there is no more shadow, they have to stop telling the prophecy right at the point where there's no more shadow. And they, no matter if they're in the middle of a sentence, they got to stop. And they don't start until the next day, at the time when that sunrise, and up till then. And on the fourth day, and it never fails, they complete the prophecy. And it's very sacred. And if the sky is not just right, they can't tell the prophecy. They got to wait another 4 years. There can be absolutely no clouds in the sky to tell this. When it's properly told, it affects all of the life around us. The birds will stop to listen. They'll huddle by the hundreds around you, but they'll hardly make a peep. When it's finished, then everything seems to celebrate. From that point on the fourth day, is open to social dances. People are happy. They sing, they dance, they celebrate, they eat, they feast. And all the birds and animals do the same thing. It's so sacred. And that's the only prophecy which I can cut short to tell you that has to deal with now and also 1,000 years into the future. The 1,000 years that it deals in the future describes the emergence of this fourth world coming, the beautiful life that's coming.